Hi folks, Buckley here. We're going to go through making tables according to table formatting guidelines in Microsoft Word. So what I have here is a table that isn't quite meeting our standards for formatting. So there's multiple issues with this that we're going to address. This table contains a lot of text data, and it's not heavy on numerical data. So I think, and it's a pretty self-contained table, so we're going to do this editing in Word. If you encounter a table that is a bit longer, right, so it has much more data, or there's numerical data in the body of the table, you may be better off doing those edits in Microsoft Excel. But this is a good case for doing the edits directly in Word. So we're going to start with a couple things. The first is, obviously this table needs a caption. Okay, so I'm going to make sure that I've got my caption left justified above the table. This will be experimental design for validation of tree hugger product. I'm also going to make sure that this table, the second big problem is that the table is interrupted. Before I do that though, let me just check that this is cited. Nope, doesn't look like it is cited. So I would make sure that I would add somewhere up here, probably testing parameters were defined according to table 3. So making sure that I have an in-text citation. Okay, next I'm going to make sure that this table is not split. So right now it's split across 2 pages. We don't like that. So I'm going to go ahead and insert a page break. Insert break, page break. That'll take that down. So that's good. Next thing is really just kind of the formatting, right? So these colors really aren't necessary. So I'm going to go ahead into table design and I'm going to undo the shading. So under shading I would just select no color to get rid of that. I'm also going to go ahead and get rid of the bolding. The bolding doesn't make any sense to me either. So really the only thing that needs to be bolded is up here. Right, so that first row which has our headings. Next thing is the data don't completely match, right? So I've got number of stakes and then in parentheses geometry, and I'm trying to also convey when there's a control. So I'm going to kind of simplify some of the text here and maybe say this is control, and every time I see a 6 I'm going to go ahead and replace that just to make this nice and consistent, and I'll get rid of this here. Okay, so now that column is consistent. Let me look at the next one, number of knots, slit securement. Really all that I want to talk about here is the number of knots, and I can do an abbreviation for number, just NO with a period there to kind of tighten up that. So I'd have 3 knots and that is my control. Be 0 knots. So I'm just making sure that everything in these columns, these are kind of the bigger edits that I'm doing. Placement of stakes. Stake distance. Maybe I'll specify that in feet so I can just put 2 and that's control. So again, if I've got a chance to put units up here in the header row, I'm going to do that. It's going to cut down and make it much, much easier to read this table, right? Stake length, that's actually depth. And I'll make that, so I've got foot, inches, so I'm going to make that inches, 12, and that's control. Okay, looks good. This would be 6, that would be 8, and that would still be control. Soil conditions, undisturbed is the control, so I'm going to go ahead and flip that. Undisturbed control. already this is looking much better. Okay, so I've flipped this so that I've got some consistency. So if I'm looking down, I'm always seeing consistency here. This control is a little distracting though, which is why I might do something like this, where I'm going to say, whoops, asterisk. I'm going to put a footnote, denotes control, testing condition. And I'll just replace all of these words control with an asterisk. I could probably do a find, replace, edit, find and replace. Where I see space, parenthesis, control, I'm going to just replace with a asterisk. Replace all. There we go, 33 replacements. Saved me a bit of time there. Okay, so, oops, this last one was disturbed, right? My bad. Okay, so that's looking a little bit better. Let's kind of even take it to the next level. So one thing here is I'm noticing that these aren't even spacings, and that's just a little annoying to me. Basically, we have numerical data all the way across, and then we've got some text data over here. So that text column can be a little bit longer, but my numerical data shouldn't be really, I shouldn't see a difference in width there. So let me go to Layout under Table Design, as I'm going to do Distribute Columns. That's going to make it nice and even. Okay, and let's see what else. I am going to make sure that I am centering and left justifying in all these conditions. And from there, that looks pretty good. So this would be about where I'd expect to see your tables, okay, per these reviews or per the formatting guidelines. If you want to take it up even one more notch, the other thing you could play with are the borders. So right now we have all of the borders here turned on. So one way to do this is to actually use a drop down, right? And then you've got all borders, which is cool, okay? So that's giving you kind of a cartoony look to this. I wouldn't say it's professionally done just yet. It meets our standards for this class, don't get me wrong, but it's not completely there. So one thing that Word does that's kind of nice is it does offer some features. So you can this guy here are quick editing features, and sometimes that does a decent job. So actually this guy here is a pretty decent looking format. I might change a couple things. You see I'm just kind of futzing with what's bolded and what's not. This generally isn't bolded, but you've got a nice heavy line there on the bottom and lighter lines around it. If you're still not happy with this, another thing you could do is you could do it manually and you could play with the borders. So I generally start by clearing all the borders, which looks like this. And then I would put a border on the top and the bottom, which is, let's see, top and bottom. Nope. Border bottom, border top. And that would give me something that looks like that. So that's even more professionally done there. One last little comment is it's okay for you to go down. So right now I'm in 12-point font. You could go down to 11 or 10-point font here. You don't want to go too much further. So if my table's looking like that, that's way too small. If somebody's got to break out glasses to see what's going on, that's a problem. Justification is the other thing that is kind of stressed in the textbook. What you want to be able to do with the table is to look across the rows, especially when you don't have any lines that are running across here, and see exactly what lines up with what. So to do that on this table, I might pull this in just a little bit more. Let's see. What happens is if you get rid of these borders, it becomes, there we go. So I'm shrinking the table ever so slightly. I might go back up. Oops, that's not taking the whole column. So you can see you can kind of drag and drop. Pulling this over, pulling that guy over. Okay, let me recenter all of these. So that'll be under Layout, Distribute Columns Evenly. See how this is a little tighter, so it's a little bit easier for me to run straight across. The other thing here is you do want to pay attention to whether or not centered looks okay in this instance. Sometimes with text data, you're always going to want to left justify, or I'm sorry, numerical data, you're going to left justify. Your textbook's really particular about that. I'm going to be less particular, so long as I can clearly look across the rows and see how things line up. Okay, we're in 10.5. I'm going to dial this up to 11 just to be a little more generous. And that's a very good looking table that we did just using the features in Microsoft Word. Okay.